to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is our own pianist in residence, Sam Page. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
We're especially happy because Sam has a new microphone. Hooray!
Woo! Yes, good to be here. Good to be heard.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because every time we've tried to hear you in the past, the mic was cutting out and so forth. So we actually get to hear what you have to say, which is a good thing. And we're going to break it in today, right? We're going to give you a chance to also show you the other way that you communicate with the public. You're going to give us a little music. So let's turn over to Sam Page, improvisation for July 19th.
Let's do it.
All right.
Little tease.
So that's great, though. That's like 15 seconds of pure bliss. So thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Happy to share.
Well, we like to raise the vibration, right? That's what we're all about. Your daily dose of happy. You just help.
That's the intention too.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So thank you very much for that. And we are also welcoming a special guest today. Now, before I tell you who my special guest is, I got to give you a little background because she has a really cool name, and I want to tie it into an historical figure. So, anyone who knows anything about the Arthurian legend knows that Morgana Rae was a sorceress. She was a goddess. She was like the magical person behind Arthur. In fact, depending on which version of the Arthurian stories you listen to, she was also his half sister. So she kind of played a lot of different roles, but she was a person of magic. And so I'm going to tell you that we have her magical descendant joining us on the program today, and her name is Morgana Rae, which is so cool. It's so similar to Morgana Rae. So Morgana is the author of a book called Financial Alchemy, very appropriate, subtitled 12 Months of Magic and Manifestation. So I couldn't think of a better way to bring her on by saying, hey, well, she's got this progeny going on here that's pretty darn cool. So Morgana, thank you for joining us today.
I'm very happy to be here. By the way, it is no accident that my name sounds like Morgana Rae. I was named after her by my mother.
Were you really?
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What's up?
It's a big name to live into. It's kind of rough when you're in preschool and people are teasing you, Morgana, banana, and I run off bursting in tears. But it serves me now.
That's beautiful. I love it. Well, your mom obviously knew what was going on. She must have had some sort of inclination you were going to write this book. Because, I mean, the book itself has the word alchemy in it. I mean, come on. That's perfect.
Well, I've been coaching. I've been a spiritual life and business coach for almost 30 years. And the adjectives that clients typically apply to me, they usually are kind of magical adjectives. So it's kind of part of my being and part of my brand.
Do you feel magical?
Yes.
You do.
I wrote the book on it.
All right. Yeah.
Yes. And I can talk about that. I'm especially well known for magic when it has to do with money, but it's not just money. It also can be applied to love. That's how I met my husband.
Nice.
The process that I'll walk you through, I used on love. Yeah. It can work on health. I would just say that in my experience, because I've been a coach for 28 years now, and I've coached thousands and thousands of people. And from my own experience in coaching people, it's my experience that if you are doing everything you're supposed to be doing over and over and over again, and you just are not getting the results that you desire and deserve, I don't even think it's because you have a low vibration or you're doing law of attraction wrong. It has been my experience that on a level below your awareness, you are protecting yourself from this thing you're pursuing, and you have very good reasons. You're not a failure. You're not a loser. You're not even I also don't believe in self-sabotage. Like, everything in you is really on your team to keep you safe and healthy and alive. And so it's not a mistake. You have real things to protect yourself from a very self-loving place. And we need to make what you want safe. change happens at the speed of safety, and very often not before. So that's everything's going to revolve around how do we make money safe? How do we make love safe? How do we make health safe? And your conscious mind will be going, well, what do you mean? How do you make these things safe?
Yeah,
These
right.
are
What are you
great
talking
things.
about?
Yeah, well, yes, and there, I believe the universe gets our attention through three primary teachers, and they are money, love, and health. And those are the challenges that wake us up and grab our attention. And money more than any of the others, because money touches everything. It is the number one excuse human beings give for everything we can't have, do, or be. So it can be really, really messy ball of hurt. And so we want to dig in and find out, like put on your curious tourist hat and find out why you're really protecting yourself from what you're pursuing. And I can promise you that when it comes to money, the reasons you protect yourself from money are not the ones you think they are. They are not going to be what you expect. If you knew, you could already have fixed it. So
True.
It's what money represents. So we want to get rid of what doesn't work and then keep all the good stuff and even better. And I would say that that's true for anything. We never take away anything, whether it's smoking or sugar or anything. We never take away anything without putting something better there. That is the quickest and easiest way to change.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because you can't really just drop a habit. You have to replace it with another habit. Otherwise, it's like pushing, a mountain up a hill. That's crazy. You just never get there.
And if the new one is more fun and more easy and more pleasurable and doesn't come with a bunch of negative consequences, it's really easy to change a habit.
Which is really good. I'm very intrigued by this approach of yours. I mean, I hear a lot of things, as you might imagine, here on the program. A lot of different approaches, a lot of really good ones, a lot of very successful approaches. This is unique. I can't say that I've never heard anyone say that the protecting of yourself, the safety of yourself and so forth is important. I've had others say that, but you're kind of taking it to a new level. So I'm going to be very curious to see how you go about doing that. So give us a lay of the land. How do we actually go about this?
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you a little background first, if that's okay.
Sure.
So full disclosure, I completely failed at law of attraction. And I live in Los Angeles, which is like a world capital of all things woo. I was doing like rebirthing in 1983 and like all the, positive thinking. It goes like way back. And nothing I was doing, the vision boards, the mantras, the friends who would wave their hands and change my money DNA, nothing was moving the needle at all.
Okay.
And I was taking all the marketing classes and getting more and more certifications and more testimonials and all the, normal skills. And at my lowest point, I was living in Los Angeles. Ivy League degree, half a dozen coaching certifications, mountains of celebrity testimonials, beautiful website, the brand, the tagline, the brochures, the public speaking, all of that. And I was living in Los Angeles, struggling to make $100 a month.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah.
And that was sketchy. Like that was on its way out.
Sure.
So I had taken this class on overcoming sales objections. It was like my Hail Mary. This is going to be it. The magic words to say when somebody says, oh, I love you and I want to do your thing, but I can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm such a good student that honestly, when I was 16, I was hit by a car in a coma. I had a traumatic brain injury, couldn't remember anything, and I still graduated as a National Merit Scholar. So I'm just telling you this, like, I will do what it takes. So I took this class and I mastered it. And 7 people in a row, I overcame their objections and they said they were going to hire me. And nobody showed up and nobody paid.
Oof.
That's a
low point.
Yeah. So I that was like, I think in 12-step programs, they talk about hitting bottom. I hit bottom.
Yeah.
I ran out of any kind of hope. I just completely despaired, sunk to the bottom.
Yeah.
Rage, heartbreak, hopelessness, fear, despair, all of it. There was just, I felt so helpless. And I remember being in my tiny little 1-bedroom apartment that I could not afford and pulling closed the drapes, getting on my bed and just screaming and crying and raging and wailing until I just had nothing left.
Wow.
Really scary place to be. I felt like the unloved red-haired stepchild of the universe. I felt so hated.
Man. Yeah.
I hated the universe back. And I really just didn't see any future for myself on planet Earth. And you know what that means.
Yeah, sure.
So I share that because I can be light and merry now. At the time, I was not. It was terrifying and devastating. And the great thing about being in that dark place, and I'm telling you, anybody watching or listening who is in that really heavy place of despair and anxiety, it gives you a huge leg up. Like that is 99% of the work of transformation. It's like, think of a slingshot, and the more tension you create, the more energy you are building to catapult yourself into the correct in the desired direction. You're lighting up all your neurology. So the person who is stressed out, you get an A+. This is going to be easier for you. And all of my law of attraction friends, we have worked so hard on having a good attitude and, compartmentalizing our trauma. And what I'm going to ask you to do very, very briefly for, the time we're together, and you'll get it back, I promise you. But I want you to take off your positive thinking hat. Okay. Put it in a lockbox, like a lead-lined lockbox in your basement, guarded by dragons, and leave it be. And what I want you to do is I want you to put on your victim hat.
Ooh, okay.
Right? Put on your victim hat. I believe that our victim experiences are sacred, or they wouldn't have happened. And they can be a huge source of power and evolution when we actually use them. So I was in quintessential gold medal victim experience in that moment.
Sure.
And that's when change happens. So here I am making $100 a month, doesn't even begin to pay for anything, living on credit card debt, borrowing from family, flying out of town every 2 weeks to get more skills to repel more clients. It was insane. People wanted to hire me. And it was like I had this superhuman power of money repulsion. If I had a superhero costume, it would have a big R on the chest. Like nobody, no matter how badly they wanted to hire me, could penetrate this power of repulsion. No matter how hard I tried, how hard I worked, how many things I spoke at, no matter what I did, I was taking classes that were telling me to do the stuff I was already doing. So not only was I not making money, I was throwing money to make the money I wasn't making. Ugh. Yeah. And I had a coach, which is crazy, but it saved my life. Because the day after I had that complete meltdown, I had a coaching session, poor guy.
Poor guy, yeah.
Well, actually, I'm jesting. Any one of you who has a therapist or a coach or anything like that, we like to show up as good clients on good behavior. Don't do that. Don't do that. It gives your coach nothing to work with. True. Bring your mess. We love that. We're not sadists really, even but it gives us something to contribute. So I showed up and I was just hopeless. I was just so despaired and dark and unhappy. And what was there to do? I'd been working with him for months. I did everything he told me to do. Nothing was working. And now this didn't work. And he didn't know why, and I didn't know why. But on this day, when I was in this terrible state, my coach asked me a question that changed my life forever and put me on the path that I've been on since.
Okay.
He asked me, if your money was a person, who would your money be? And suddenly I saw this person. And money was no longer some abstract concept. It was like a guy. And this guy was big and scary and dirty and violent.
Wow.
And he terrified me. He was bad. And I had this moment of imagining that I was at a live event with this guy. And I would keep my eye on him 24/7 to create maximum distance between the two of us.
Oh.
And that was my aha moment. It was the first time in my life that my financial situation made sense. It didn't matter what I wanted consciously. Unconsciously, I knew that this was a bad guy who was going to get in the way of love and was going to kill me.
Wow.
And there was no way that I could have money in my life if it was that guy. And that relationship needed to change. He wasn't going to change. And by the way, this is true of human beings too. We cannot change other people. We can only work on ourselves.
Boy, is that the truth.
Right?
Yeah.
Interesting how things outside of us change after we work on ourselves. Late and total digression here, ladies. Don't date potential. Never ever date a guy wanting to change him. Wanting to change somebody is not love. It only took me like 45 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
So that's a side story.
Yeah.
So there's this biker guy. Not going to change. Can't have money if it's him. I had to get rid of him. Which created a new problem because I lived in Los Angeles and I had just gotten rid of my relationship with money. Right? So, and this, by the way, this is just a pattern. You solve one problem and a new challenge presents itself.
Sure.
That's life. So, yay, got rid of the monster. Yikes, I just got rid of money. Now what? So at that moment, I was so aware of this emptiness where this monster guy, what I now call the money monster, was in my life, around me, my whole life, and I was never aware of it, sort of like a fish is not aware of water.
Yeah.
But when it's gone, wow,
That's when
that was different. And I knew I needed to fill the space immediately. Like I didn't want that monster, some rando monster walking down Sunset Boulevard, like coming into this vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. So I immediately thought to myself, okay, well, who could I want in my life so much? Who would be so wonderful that I'd be willing to have this person in my life, even if it's money? And the reason, well, if you've ever been in a really bad relationship, you don't want to get into that again. And my only experience of money was stories of family members fighting and stealing and not talking to each other and all sorts of poverty and inequality in the world and just all these negative associations and this own personal feeling of inadequacy and not being good enough and being rejected and being a failure. So there was really nothing good for me in that relationship. So I needed it to come in a package that was so lovable and wonderful that it was like I could overlook the money part. And this is really, really important because the love comes first. The cash follows. Again, I had to have a relationship that was so safe and so worthy of my deepest love and admiration that I could allow it in my life. And it just so happens this new money came in the package of a really gorgeous, tall, dark, handsome, romantic guy in my imagination, dressed in a tuxedo, holding a bouquet of red flowers, who was in love with me and wanted to be with me and wanted to woo me. which was really surprising. And what I've learned coaching so many people over so many years is that, generally speaking, a lover archetype for this new relationship with money tends to work best. And when I say works best, I'm talking dollar amounts, first of all. But it also ripples out into all your other relationships, romantic relationships, family, business relationships, your relationship with yourself. That kind of love heals so many little broken pieces inside of ourselves.
Sure.
And for anybody watching or listening who has sexual or romantic trauma in your background, I want to speak to that very quickly too, this is a very different pattern. This new person is just all love and all respect, is never going to hurt you or initiate or push you into anything that's not safe. You have the body, you are the gatekeeper, you have the power in this relationship, and it can give you an opportunity to create a whole new pattern in all of your relationships moving forward. Money and love are always, always, always linked. So we want to make it all safe. So this cute guy is my new relationship with money. He doesn't feel like money. He feels like love. And he feels like a new relationship with life. And to be perfectly honest with you, this new character is a new relationship with life. I made a decision at that moment to call him money because money was that area of my life that needed my love and healing. So I call it the money honey, my money honey.
Oh.
And I could feel so strongly in that moment a couple of things that, all of it surprised me, but some of the things that I didn't expect was it felt like he had been there forever. I could feel how much he loved me. I could feel how much I had been breaking his heart because I had been pushing him away all those decades that I felt like I was being rejected or yanked around by money. No, I was rejecting this really sweet guy. And it was really hurting him, and he didn't deserve that. And he wanted to be with me, which created a new challenge because I had a lifetime of knowing how to push money away, even though it wasn't conscious. But I had all these built-in patterns to push money away. I had no experience letting money be with me the way he wanted to be with me. So step 4 is I met the money honey. Step 5 was I had a conversation with this new person, this new relationship with money. And I asked him very simply, well, what do you need from me so you can stay with me? And there are 2 presuppositions. Well, first of all, I'm not asking what do you need from me so you can love me, because the love is there. That is the rule of the money honey. Is the money honey loves you unconditionally, loves you more than anybody in the world. This is your new relationship with money, life, and yourself. And we give it personhood, and I usually call it a money honey depending on the client. And this person wants to be with you. And finally, you have the body, you have the power. So you don't need to earn love. Love is unconditional. Presence is not. If you reject money, money will take the hint. So I had to ask, how do I stop rejecting you? I don't have a clue. And the great thing is when this money person really feels like a person, and I'm actually not naturally good at visualizing, but when you're feeling things so strongly, it can come really automatically. So I could see what he looked like. I could feel what he felt like. I could even smell what it was just like a real person there. And when you ask a question, your mind immediately pops in with an answer. So I asked him and he answered. And in that moment, he said, I need you to love me. And I need you to stop treating me like a monster. And it was such a sweet answer. And it seemed so obvious. And I also want to very, very quickly address the whole thing about the love of money being the root of all evil. Because, it's going to come up in somebody, if not everybody's mind right now.
Sure.
So, two things. Love is not evil. Love is not greed. It's not exploitation. It's not scarcity. It's not envy. It does not cause harm. None of that is love. Love is expansive and joyous and generous. There's almost a selfless, divine, abundant quality to it. It is your best self. That is love. That is all love ever is. Anything else is not love. That's the love I'm talking about. And I have a friend in England who took a class in ancient Aramaic, which is the original language of the Old Testament. And she told me that that's actually not what the passage says at all. It says the worship of money will cause problems.
Oh,
yeah.
Not quite the same thing.
Not the same thing at all.
No.
And I would say, well, of course. Of course. So don't worship, but love. Be a loving person. Be a loving person to this life partner who will be with you for your entire life, and be a loving person to yourself. Be loving. And the more loving you are, because this money, honey, I promise you, he, she, they, whatever flavor works for you, they will have the same values as you. They want to save the world the way you want to save the world. And they believe in you, and they exist to help you do it. They are, he, she, mine is a he is my partner. So that's this new relationship, and it only brings out your best. If it doesn't bring out your best, it's a monster, and you have to get rid of it. And so that's step 5, is you have this conversation with your money, honey. And then there's one step left, 6 steps, and I'll race through them because I like to wander and tell stories. So I learn things linear and I teach the opposite. So cool. The 6th step is action, concrete, measurable action. Like I could call you next week and ask you if you did it, and you could tell me. Action is magical. Like we can get very woo and into the ether and money honeys and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, we live in bodies. We live in a physical universe. We want to see physical results. So you have to take it out of the concept. And even making money a person makes it a lot more real. But then take an action. And the reason for that is when in step 5, you ask your money, honey, what do you need from me? Or whatever your question is, because you're going to want to have questions with this new relationship with money for the rest of your life. But very often you'll get responses that are kind of unachievable, like love yourself, or trust, or the worst of all for every woman alive, relax. And these are all great aspirational goals, but I've never met a human being who can love themselves perfectly 24/7 for the rest of their lives, or trust, or any of that all the time forever. So we want to bring it down to something a lot more achievable and manageable that you can like give yourself a check mark. You accomplished it. And again, we're bringing it down into physical reality. So the importance of taking this action is more than anything else, you're letting yourself know that this relationship has changed. You're committed to this new relationship, and you can trust your own word. If you make a commitment, you will keep it. And that does so much for your own self-esteem and self-respect. So the action, step number 6, concrete, measurable action, it doesn't even have to be about money. Because remember, it's really your relationship with life, but we're calling it money with air quotes and a wink, because that's a part of life that really needs our love and our healing. But I've had clients, oh my God, I had a client who, Janet in Canada, her money honey wanted her to take a walk, and she didn't do it for 2 weeks because she was so worried about money. And she finally went outside and took a walk, and she picked up 2 clients on that walk for more than she'd ever charged before.
Whoa.
I have so many stories like that. Kate, She committed to going skating. She didn't do it the first day, nothing changed. Didn't do it the second day, nothing changed. Went out skating with her son the third day and got home, got a phone call for out of the blue and $10,000.
Nice.
So by the way, I never make any prediction or promise of what is going to happen when. I tend to be as amazed and delighted as my clients. But I do know that there are these 6 steps that need to happen. So the first step is uncover the root cause. And I'm going to go into that a little deeper.
Okay.
That's where I said, put on your victim hat. Step 2 is then give personhood to the root cause, and we'll call it your money monster. And you want to make it as real and human as possible, just not you and not your parents, because in step number 3, you are going to obliterate it. This is not how I began, but this is what I've learned from coaching so many people and seeing who gets the really dramatic multi-million-dollar results.
Okay.
So I want to give you, like, I want to totally stack the deck in your favor.
Okay.
So I would just say, especially because like my crowd are the light workers, wow, what a surprise. Her name is Morgana and she talks about magic and alchemy. Who would expect that, so I get the light workers and the vegans and the do-gooders of the world and the healers. And I'm saying, I want you to be really, really bloody right now. Or there's victim experience tends to be it has sort of a heaviness, a sinking quality to it. Sometimes maybe a dampness to it. And there's a real spiritual power to, like, it's sort of a hot rising energy of this no longer is acceptable. The only one of you gets to survive, the monster or you. So you get to choose yourself and reject everything that has that you do not want to allow in your life experience. And you put all of it into the monster and you just annihilate it any way that you can imagine, because it's all imaginary until it's completely gone and there's no energetic trace left. And I've had clients, some clients are very challenging, and that's not because they're bad. It's because it's what they need.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of protection there that we have to get through. And I've gone as deep as maybe 10 levels before we finally got to the real monster at the bottom.
Wow.
But when it's gone, it's gone. And that's when you go to step 4 and you get to meet the money honey, which is all love. And then you get to have a conversation with this money honey. I encourage you to start with, what do you need from me, so that you can stay with me the way you want to. And then step number 6 is you take concrete, measurable action. I said that I was going to touch on the root cause. There's something, because I may have skipped over this and I really don't want to miss it because I think it's really important.
Okay.
And forgive me if I am repeating myself. I go in the zone and I can't remember anything I said a second ago.
These repetitions are actually very useful, so don't freak out about them. They're actually very good. They're orderly. We can follow them easily. You're doing
great.
Good.
Yay. So here's the thing about money. Money is just completely invented. It doesn't exist outside of like human imagination. It's like a shared delusion that we all agree that this purse is worth $5 and this purse is worth $5,000, but they're just bags, So that's not why we're so weird about money. It's because money represents the most real, important, and often painful parts of our human experience. It represents love. Am I loved? Am I wanted? It represents worth. Am I worthy? Am I valued? Am I valuable? What is valued in our society? It represents safety. Do I have a safe car? Do I have food? Do I have medical care? Do I have shelter? Do I have protection from abuse? Can I leave if I need to? All of our issues of safety, my right to exist. Do I even have a right to exist if I have no money? That's a really painful question. We didn't invent any of this. We're not crazy. We have, thousands of years of slavery and all this stuff tied in with our experience of money today. And then finally, power. Am I powerful or am I powerless? When have I felt powerless? Abuses of power. All of that kind of stuff is going to show up in your money relationship, and any dysfunctional money drama you have we're going to find the root cause in any experience you've ever had of feeling unloved or unlovable, feeling unworthy or not valued, feeling unsafe, especially stuff that doesn't look like it has anything to do with money. Maybe you had an illness or an accident or violence. The more it doesn't look like money, the better. Because now we're really getting into, you just follow the energy. Where is the pain the strongest? Follow the energy. And then powerless. Anything that has ever made you feel like your choice doesn't matter. You can't change things. These are the real painful things. You do not have to go so deep that you re-traumatize yourself. You do not have to go so deep that you dissociate. It's not necessary to harm yourself. I do not believe that. You just want to wake up enough feeling that you're activating your neurology enough. So what we're creating is neuroplasticity in the brain so that we can rewire you. So that when we switch from the monster to the honey, it sticks and it becomes just a natural part of the way you are and you live moving forward permanently.
Sure.
So I know that in, the law of attraction world, there is a lot of stuff like high vibes only and, sort of a fear of going into those dark places. And I would say that, as I said in the beginning, your victim experiences are sacred. You do not need to fear them. You've already experienced it, so you've already paid the price of admission. So you don't have to go through any of those horrible things again. But you get to make them work for you. You get to milk it. And I call this process alchemy, because alchemy is the transmutation of leaden human experience, which is supposed to be part of our human experience. It humanizes us. It gives us the capacity for empathy and to help others. That it's like, because I've hurt, I know how bad that is, and I don't want you to hurt. And that's a magical and really sacred pact. So you don't have to be afraid of those low vibes. They can be super magical. They are the fuel. They are the lead in human experience, the lead into gold. That's alchemy, that we churn into spiritual and material gold. And the worse your monster is, yay, the bigger the transformation. You win. The person with the biggest, baddest monster wins, because your honey will always be bigger and better and more wonderful, and you will always be more powerful than your monster. Always. No monster survives on my watch.
I love that. That's great. That is fabulous. I have questions of my own, but Sam, I'm going to turn to you first and give you the opportunity if you're interested. Anything you want to ask Morgana after that wonderful presentation?
That was great. I guess what is the most common thing that people come up with, or what's something that people struggle with in this process?
Well, people usually get stuck either on the monster or the honey. The person who's already in pain is, for me, often the easiest to coach, because the pain is already on the surface. It's almost like they've already started. They're already in step one.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So everything depends on the step before it. You can't skip the monster to go to the honey. I wish you could. I've tried it. Doesn't work. The monster is surprisingly also an ally in this process. It's part of, the whole rewiring. So you need to go deep enough, and then you need to make the monster real enough. And the reason I say that is because every now and then I'll hear from somebody who says, well, I keep slaying my monster over and over and over again, and I'm not moving forward. And what has been my experience is that they didn't go deep enough. They didn't get off the money story to the real stuff underneath.
Oh yeah.
And another tendency, especially as healthy law of attraction, positive thinking types, is to go, oh, it's not such a big deal. I know it's worse for other people. That's not going to help you here. I want you to be the biggest victim in the world temporarily. And another trap is if the monster's too cartoonish. That to me is what I would call a money monster scam. See, these monsters have great gigs. They have great gigs. They get to feed off of your pain as long as you're alive. And, you know, who wants to? So they don't want to go. Okay. So they might have tricks like, oh, it's not such a big deal and it's worse for other people and I shouldn't feel that way. That's one trick. Another one is when the monster is so cartoonish that it doesn't really feel real.
Yeah.
The more human, the more real you can make the monster feel in your experience, the better.
That makes
right? And then you just have to make sure it's 100% gone.
Yes.
No bloody bits. You know, after you've stabbed it or whatever you've done. But by the way, I don't even watch violent movies and listen to me talk. Then I say, you know, clean it up with, you know, sulfuric acid to like melt everything that's left, or a cosmic vacuum cleaner or whatever, to just, it's just gone. When it's gone, you know it. And if it's not gone, take what's ever left and create a little monster out of that and get rid of that. So those are the biggest challenges on the monster side. If you are having trouble connecting to a honey, and that's the other place people get stuck, I tend to suspect that if the honey is not feeling real, or you're just doesn't feel like it loves you, or just isn't present, is that maybe there's some monster that you missed.
Could be, yeah.
Who's kind of getting in the way. The bed is not big enough for all three of you.
Right.
Yes.
Sense.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah. And then you just have to keep staying in the relationship. And let me tell you, as a happily married woman, relationships are work. You know, there's a lot of attention and affection, and that's actually what makes it fun. It's harder to maintain a relationship with an imaginary person who doesn't have a body, right?
That is fair.
So right. So you may have just like the greatest money honey in the world, and then, you know, 6 months go by and you haven't talked. And you've gotten really complacent. Maybe you've gone back to some bad habits or whatever. And then you start to notice, oh, I just lost a bunch of money. Or why are my sales stopping? What's going on? And I interpret that as like your money going, hello, over here. Woohoo, woohoo. You, me. Let's get back into relationship, getting your attention, time to evolve. And then you get to use that as literally your portal for your next level. Your next level of evolution and your next level of abundance. Every time you slay a monster, if you have to slay a monster, and every time you reconnect with your money honey, and when I say you, I'm actually saying me. Like, I do this with clients all the time, but I also live this myself. I am my first client. Sure. Every time something goes on in the world and there's like, oh, there's a pandemic, the world suddenly doesn't feel safe. I've got a new monster. Slay it. And then I get like my next message from my money honey. That is like my next level of my personal growth, my relationship with life, my abundance, and my impact in the world. And that makes it a good thing, not a failure. It's just, you know, the next level of, you know, Morgana's Super Mario Brothers life.
There you go. I like that. Keep leveling up.
Right.
Very good. You've got more questions there, Sam?
Not that I'm sure I'll think of some, not at the moment.
Okay. Well, hang on. You can bring them in later on, but I want to give you the first shot, so to speak. I have a few questions actually.
Cool.
One question that I have has to do with the creation or discovery, and I'm not really clear which it is. Maybe it's a combination here of the monster and of the money honey. It sounds on one level like you're just kind of discovering them. On another level, it sounds like you're creating them. Could you kind of like clarify that part?
Oh my God, that is such a good question. So back in the dark ages, many years ago, when I first started teaching this, I would say things like create.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is then you're like totally in your conscious, frightened, hyper controlling, micromanaging brain. And it will look like, well, is my money honey Denzel Washington, or is he Brad Pitt, or is he, and then it's not really integrated with yourself, and you're no longer communicating with your subconscious. So what we want to do is have, well, of course we're creating, where else is it coming from? But we want to have the subjective experience of discovering. One of my very favorite money honey stories, there's this woman named Lynn Swanson who wrote to me years ago that she had heard an interview and she had slayed her monster, and her new money honey showed up looking like John Travolta in the white suit from Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And she thought that was ridiculous. So she kept trying to put him into other clothes.
I love it.
But he kept bouncing back in the white suit. He wanted the white suit. As soon as I heard that, I knew she got it because he was so much his own person.
Mm.
And so she was in this stressful situation where she had all these outstanding invoices, all these clients who owed her money and nobody was paying, and she had payroll coming and she didn't have money for her employees, which is like bad enough when you don't have your own, but you have all these people who work for you. Mm-hmm. And so she put that into slaying the monster. And when she was on the other side and she's coming up with, okay, what do I do, money honey? And is throwing out ideas. What her money honey wanted her to do was transfer money from one bank account to another. Now, I want to make that crystal clear that does not solve any problem. She was not getting more money to pay her clients. She was just moving like, what is it, deck chairs on the Titanic. Mm-hmm. But it was so clear that that's what her money honey wanted her to do. So she said, okay. So the next day she went to the bank, she transferred the money, she got in the car, turned on the radio, and the Bee Gees were playing. Right, get it? Saturday Night Fever.
Yes.
And she stops at a coffee shop on her way back to the office to pick up coffee for everybody. And she's standing in line, looking at her phone like everybody does. And she's going through her emails, and she finds an email that just arrived from a client who had been invoiced that day. And he was wiring all the money, a big 5-figure amount. It was going to cover all her debts and her payroll.
Nice.
And she looked at the timestamp of the email. And then she looked at the timestamp on the bank deposit slip, and it was a difference of 2 minutes.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And I know you're wondering what took so long. It was a long time ago. We just keep tightening it up. Right. So,
actually, that was not the first thought. The first thought in my mind was, wow, that was quick.
It can be. I mean, it can be. I never know, and I never promise what will happen when. I've just done this over and over and over again, and I see results. My client in Idaho, she did this process. She saw me speak at the Sun Valley Wellness Festival, and she bought my Money Goddess Experience home study program that I was selling as a special there. And she did the process on her own. And the first time she did it, and I have it written down somewhere, but I think she made $20,000 out of the blue the first time she did it. And then she dug up some more stuff, and she got a $50,000 check that she wasn't expecting. And then we had a quick start 15-minute call because that was my bonus for this event.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard some stuff in her family history, genocide in her family background. I thought, oh, I bet we could use this too. So we put that into a monster to slay that. And she's becoming like really good at slaying monsters and coming up with new money honeys. And this is the really cool thing is, so we had this like 15-minute chat on a Friday. And hours later, she got a phone call that people wanted to look at a house that she had put for sale years ago. Nobody had even looked at the house in a year. And by the end of the weekend, it was being sold for $1.2 million.
Wow.
And what I love about stories like this is when we're working so hard and we aren't getting results and we're feeling like losers and failures and self-sabotagers and all this kind of stuff because we're protecting ourselves from all of these experiences of being unloved, unworthy, unsafe, and helpless. Because who wants to feel that way? Or we don't want to be part of these crimes against, life that we see going on the planet right now. So when we can have a relationship with money that is so in alignment with our values, where we're not playing on opposite teams, but love and money are playing on the same team together. All that effort, all that groundwork that you had been doing all that time, it's like it finally gets to come in. It's like, it's been building up, and you had the walls and you take the walls down and suddenly it can come in really fast and really big. I think I mentioned that I did this process on my relationship with love. 10 years after I did it on my relationship with money, I was making, by the way, I've made millions of dollars and I've kept millions of dollars. It's not just about making it. When you have a monster, I've coached people on public assistance and I've coached billionaires. And it's all that drama.
Mm-hmm.
I've coached people who are really good at making millions and millions and even better at getting rid of it. And that's another sign that you've got a monster, that it's not safe. You're not on the same page. You're not the same values. Money should always exist to serve love and serve a great lifestyle and serve a positive legacy. That is the only valid purpose for money, is love, lifestyle, and legacy. Anything else becomes a perversion and a monster. So anyway, 10 years after I changed my relationship with money, I was 45. I'd been looking for my life partner since I chased Brian Patterson under the piano on his 5th birthday, and Brian was the older man. And I was still looking. And so I was hearing myself teach, well, if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing and you aren't seeing results. And I had that horrible experience that we've all had of hearing yourself speak and know that you're talking to yourself. I was like, oh, crap, that sounds like my romantic situation. So I slayed a love monster and met my husband 2 months later. And the punchline is that we are 26 weddings deep into getting married 100 times in 100 countries. And it was
lovely.
All his idea. Mr. I don't believe in marriage, he said on our second date. It just, all that work I did, that is my theory.
Okay, that's fair.
It may be true or not, but it is my theory that all that effort is not wasted and that it just comes back when it's safe for us to receive it.
So this actually leads nicely into a second question that formed pretty early for me in the process of what you were describing. It with this beautiful, beautiful metaphorical imaginary landscape that you've created here. You talk about how, and I think very validly, you talk about how the monsters or that negative side, that victim side and so forth are actually very valuable to us. And I agree with that. In fact, something I've been looking at and working on for myself, I mean, Salem's going to know what I'm talking about here, is learning to appreciate that side. So I guess the question in my mind is, why do I slay it?
That is a great question. So the victim experience is valuable because it humanizes us and it stirs us to move. But staying there is dangerous. We don't want to live there because it sucks out all of our desire to live. And that's really what the monster does. Anything that sucks out your desire to live is what this monster is. So it really comes down to eventually becoming a choice. And that, especially for us healer types, choices, boundaries, the magic of no is really powerful for us and part of our path.
Sure.
There's a dear friend of mine named Chelly Campbell. Chelly, if you're watching. And she loves poker. She's a very different kind of abundance coach. And she loves poker. And so she talks about there are 3 kinds of people in the world. And they are dolphin, shark, and tuna. And I think that that's related to.
It is. I do know exactly. I play poker. I know exactly what she's talking about. This is great.
So dolphins are very playful, uplifting, like we want each other to succeed. It's fun. You know, we want to play with each other. And our job as dolphins is to swim, swim, swim and look for other dolphins who also like want us to succeed. But here's the thing is as we're swimming through the ocean, we're going to come across sharks. And sometimes they can even look and sound a lot like dolphins. Sure. But sharks inherently are very win-lose. And they get their energy. They feel good about themselves by victimizing others. Yep. You know, that's how they feel good and powerful is I got one over on them. And so if you feel like you're bleeding, even if somebody is like the super spiritual guru, but why do you feel so bad when that might be a shark, you know? So our job is to get really good and at spotting sharks. And when we see a shark, swim away. Mm-hmm. Dolphins can fight sharks. We can. Mm-hmm. But it uses up a lot of energy and we can leave wounded.
Oh, yes.
What is more dangerous to a dolphin than a shark is tuna. Tuna are natural prey. And by the way, we all have tuna moments. Those are our victim moments. And so tuna will sound like, why does this always happen to me? And it's tuna. We have those tuna moments. We cannot turn anybody from a tuna to a dolphin. We can only turn ourselves from a tuna to a dolphin. So the danger of tuna is because we care, because we've been there, because we know what it's like, because we know how fab it is to be a dolphin, and we want them to be dolphins too. We can get caught in their nets and sink. So when you're swimming as a dolphin and you come across a tuna, you also need to swim away. You can swim away with love. You can, share resources, but you want to seek dolphins. You want to encourage tuna to become dolphins. Every tuna has that possibility, but that idea that tuna actually are dangerous, especially for us empathic types who feel the pain of the world, we can easily lose hope and drown in that net. I think that related to a question you asked.
Well, the question was about whether or not, why is it we're slaying the monster?
Because it's powerful. It's my mother from the 1980s loved a show called Highlander. And the thing about Highlander was that there was the saying, there can only be one. Mm-hmm. The monster will suck your will to live. The monster will do horrible things in the world and will get you off your track. So you at some point have to decide no. And the monster will show up in sharks and the monster will show up in tuna. Now I get to tie it in with Chelly Campbell's fabulous metaphor. So it's powerful to choose yourself and now to get all Monty Python and get all thou shalt not pass. No, you do not get to come with me.
Okay. It's interesting. I never really thought about it in terms of wanting to slay the monster. I thought about it in terms of trying to first accept it. I don't want to live there, like you said. I don't want to live in that space. That's not a fun space to live in, but accept it and say, okay, all right, well, it served its purpose. I can let it go now. But slaying it, that's a different concept.
Well, I didn't slay my first monster. This is what I teach now. Doesn't sound all that much like what I started with. So I slayed my monster. I made this deal with my money honey. I made an agreement. Step 6 was, so he wants me to love him and stop treating him like a monster. Well, what does that look like? And I started to think about all the times he brought me clients and how I would freak out when they said, what do you charge? As if I was ashamed of this smelly, disgusting, hideous, embarrassing monster that I didn't want anyone to know was there. And I felt all this guilt and worry that I'd be causing harm by taking their money. So no wonder I was repulsing people who wanted to hire me, because I was just oozing all this shame, right? So I initially just broke up with the biker dude. And I picked up 4 clients within 24 hours at double what I'd ever charged before. And they kept coming and they kept coming. And I started doing group programs and getting wait lists and just getting more and more and more and more expensive. And as I said before, and I've made millions of dollars since then. And now I travel the world marrying my husband. So I need a lot of time, and to do that. And when I was getting all these clients, I was not marketing the money thing at all. But since my clients were human beings, they tended to have money issues. And I had this new toy, like, oh, let's make money a cute guy and see what happens. And what happened was nothing. So I had to go back and reverse engineer what exactly has to happen to make this work. And it's not good enough to just make money a dog or a cat or a horse or a boat, because we've tried all of it. Cats know nothing about money, really. And you don't want to get intimate with them, please. So, and the monster had to be bad enough. And I found that when people slayed the monster, they got better results. So I'm kind of skipping over 20 something years of experimentation to just do my best practices now.
That's fine. It's perfectly legitimate. It just kind of surprised me as all. So
it's a great question, though.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish. I mean, we've used up our hour. I kind of wish we could just keep going, because I mean, this could get really, really fun and really, really deep. But I love what you've shared with us here during this time very much. I know Sam does too. He's giving me his usual body language that says, yeah, I love this stuff. Before we let you go, we need to get a little information from you. First of all, how does somebody reach out and find you? And I presume that Financial Alchemy is available just about everywhere, but tell us a little bit about that too.
Okay. Financial Alchemy. You can see I used to be an actress, so I can hold it up by my face. Financial Alchemy is available everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart in the United States. Just Google it and you'll find it. And it's printed literally all over the planet. So if you're in India, you can get it there. Nice. For more support, I would go to morganarae.com. It's just my name and as one word added.com. That is the mothership. I have my 4-part Money Magnetic video series there on the homepage. I have my Does Money Love You quiz. And a quick word about the quiz is it is so easy and pain-free, non-judgmental. We are all on the same path. We're all on this path of, financial freedom to focus fully on love, lifestyle, and legacy, wherever you are. So all it does is identify, oh, you're really strong here, and here you need help. And based on your responses, I send you a curated response of what I think would be useful for you next. And I always include free stuff too, because I believe, my time isn't free. But I believe transformation should be available to everybody, no matter what your circumstance is. So I have hundreds of articles and videos on my website, on the blog, because you may get a question and I want you to get it answered. Sure. The best thing to do actually is, I would say, if you're starting with anything, start with the book It is a hybrid of book and self-coaching system. So you'll see a lot of writing in it too. First half is all process and stuff that we didn't get into here. And then it's my own personal system for magic and manifestation to keep you on track so that you don't go 30 months without talking to your money honey until there's some disaster. I want you to be just like manifesting things easier and bigger than you ever imagined possible. So a word about the book, again, available Amazon, anywhere. You go to your bookstore and ask them to order it for you. Go back to morganarae.com. There is a link inside the book to a free bonus audio. But what nobody knows about when they go to Amazon or Walmart or any of those places is there's an extra bonus on my website. On my book page, it's a 2.5-hour Q&A call that I did when I launched the book. And all these people had the book and they were doing the process and then they had questions. And I am my best when I'm solving problems. So what do you do? Weird stuff. I think that one woman asked if her money honey could be a werewolf. And my response was, is he a sexy werewolf? Like, you know, so where people get stuck is I want that available to you so that you can go deeper and have better results. So yeah, go to my website, morganarae.com. If you want coaching, you can apply for a program there. And in the meanwhile, there's just tons of resources available to you.
Beautiful. Wow, this has been great. Thank you so much, Morgana, for joining us today. You've proven that you are definitely the magical descendant of Morgan Le Fay, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. We appreciate all of the tools. We'll make sure that we'll include a link to morganarae.com in the show notes too, so people will be able to find it very easily.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for what you do. I've been trying to make this a practice lately, and I'm really enjoying doing this. And particularly in this case, what you're doing is marvelous work. And I know that you're touching, and I'm sure you know that you're touching a lot of people's lives that you never even meet. You fortunately get to meet a number of people, and you're able to help a lot of people. You mentioned that there are thousands you've been able to help, which is great. But on behalf of the unseen who you helped, who you never saw, I want to thank you on their behalf as well. You're doing wonderful things, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you very much. And thank you, Sam, for your questions, for your improv, for who you are, for getting your new mic. How exciting. This is great.
There you go. No, it's been very joyful, and I really like how you frame and approach everything. I'm going to try it myself.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we have another successful show in the box, so to speak.
And so I have a request.
Yeah.
All unseen people and seen. If anything interesting happens, please let me know. Like, I live for that. Just let me know. I love to hear your stories.
Oh, those are definitely, they're rewarding, right? That's when you know you're pushing the buttons like, oh yeah, I got another one. Ding, ding, ding. Love it. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So great. Well, thank you once again. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.